The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and dreamed of what lay beyond. They built rockets. They walked on their moon. They sent machines to distant planets. And finally, in the year 2847, they answered that ancient call. Humanity reached the stars, but the stars did not welcome them. The first human ship to leave the solar system was called the Dawn Seeker. Captain Marcus Chen stood on its bridge as they crossed into unknown space. His crew of 200 souls held their breath. They expected wonders. They expected discovery. They found something else entirely. The Galactic Concord had ruled this part of the galaxy for 50,000 years. 12 species, all ancient and powerful, had built an empire that stretched across 10,000 star systems. They had seen young species rise before. They had watched them grow, and they had decided, long ago, that only certain kinds of life deserved a place among the stars. When the Dawn Seeker appeared on their sensors, the Concord sent ships to investigate. The Vethkai were the first to make contact. They were tall beings with silver skin and 6 eyes that glowed like dying stars. Their ships surrounded the tiny human vessel within hours. Captain Chen tried to communicate. He sent messages of peace. He showed them images of Earth, of human art, and music and science. He offered friendship. The Vethkai did not respond. They simply watched. Within days, representatives from all 12 Concord species had arrived. They studied the humans like scientists studying insects. They scanned their ship. They analyzed their technology. They listened to their languages and read their histories. And then they made their judgment. Ambassador Alara Vance was chosen to speak for humanity. She was a woman of 60 years, with gray hair and kind eyes. She had spent her whole life preparing for this moment. She believed, truly believed, that the universe would embrace humanity as brothers and sisters. She was wrong. The Council of 12 met on a massive station that orbited a blue giant star. Elara stood in the center of a vast chamber, surrounded by beings that towered over her. The Vethkai sat on floating thrones. The Dromar, massive creatures covered in thick scales, watched with hungry eyes. The Manthari, beings of living crystal, hummed with strange energy. Elara spoke for 3 hours. She told them about human history. She spoke of their struggles and their triumphs. She talked about their art, their dreams, their hope for a peaceful future among the stars. She promised that humanity would be good neighbors, good partners, good friends. When she finished, silence filled the chamber. The Vethkai High Speaker rose from his throne. His name was Velthos, and he had ruled his people for 2,000 years. He looked down at the small human woman with something that might have been pity. "We have studied your kind," he said. His voice was cold and ancient. "We have read your histories. We have seen what you do." Elara felt hope rise in her chest. "Then you know we are capable of great things. We know you are capable of great violence," Velthos replied. "Your history is written in blood. You fight wars over land, over resources, over ideas. You kill each other for the color of your skin and the names of your gods. You are not civilized. You are dangerous." "We have changed," Elara said desperately. "We have grown. We united to reach the stars. We can learn. We can become better." The Dromar representative laughed. It was a terrible sound, like rocks grinding together. "All young species say this. All young species believe they are special. You are not. You are aggressive predators from a small world. You do not belong among the stars." The other council members spoke in turn. Some were kinder than others. The Manthari suggested that perhaps, in a few thousand years, humanity might be ready. The Elosians expressed regret, but in the end, the vote was unanimous. Banishment. Elara felt her legs grow weak. "What does that mean?" Velthos stood and raised his hand. A holographic image appeared in the air, showing Earth's solar system. "You will return to your home," he said, "and you will stay there. Forever." The Concord's armada arrived at Sol system within weeks. Hundreds of ships, each one larger than any human vessel, surrounded humanity's home. The people of Earth watched in horror as the aliens took position around their sun. The veil was a masterpiece of technology that humanity could not understand. It was a barrier made of folded space and quantum fields. It wrapped around the entire solar system like a bubble. Nothing could pass through it. No ship, no signal, no hope. The last message humanity received from the galaxy was short and cruel. You are not welcome. Return to your cradle world, and remain there until extinction claims you, as it claims all primitive things. This is the judgment of the Galactic Concord. This is final. And then silence. For the first time in their history, humans could not see the stars. The veil turned the night sky into a pale gray dome. The constellations that had guided sailors and inspired poets for thousands of years simply vanished. The effect on humanity was devastating. Governments collapsed. Religions fractured. Many people fell into despair. What was the point of anything, they asked, if the universe itself had rejected them? Suicide rates climbed, birth rates fell. Some scientists predicted that humanity would be extinct within 500 years. But something else happened too. Something that Concord had not expected. Humanity got angry. It started as whispers. In the ruins of old nations, in the halls of dying universities, in the quiet homes of ordinary people, a new idea began to spread. Maybe the aliens were right about one thing. Maybe humans were dangerous. Maybe they were aggressive. And maybe that was not a weakness. General Sophia Reyes was the first to say it publicly. She stood in the ashes of the old United Nations building and spoke to a crowd of millions. They called us savages, she said. They said we were not civilized. They locked us in a cage and left us to die. But I remember something else about human history. I remember that we never give up. I remember that we always find a way. I remember that when someone pushes us down, we get back up. Again, and again, and again. Her voice rose like thunder. They think they have defeated us. They are wrong. One day, we will break free of this cage. One day, we will return to the stars. And on that day, the galaxy will learn what happens when you try to bury humanity. The crowd roared. In the years that followed, the old nations dissolved. Ancient hatreds were forgotten. Religious conflicts faded away. For the first time in history, humanity truly united. They called their new government the United Terran Directorate, and it had one purpose: survival. But in secret, they worked toward something else, something the Concord would never expect. The greatest scientists in history gathered together. They studied the veil day and night. They could not break it. They could not fly through it. But they searched for any weakness, any crack, any flaw, and they began to dream of revenge. The galaxy moved on. The Concord continued its ancient routines. Trade flowed between star systems. Wars were fought and treaties signed. New species rose and old species fell. Sometimes, a Concord scientist would point a telescope toward Sol system. They would see the gray dome of the veil, silent and unchanging. They would note that humanity was still trapped, still forgotten, still dying. They never thought to look closer. They never imagined what was growing in the darkness they had created. 300 years passed behind the veil. To the Galactic Concord, it was nothing. A blink of an eye. Their oldest members could remember when humanity was banished, but most had been born after. To them, the humans were just a story. A cautionary tale told to young species about what happened to those who did not belong. Sometimes, Concord scientists would check on Sol system. Their sensors showed a quiet place, a few ships moving between planets, some activity on Earth and Mars. Nothing special, nothing threatening, a dying civilization, slowly fading away. They saw what they expected to see. They did not look deeper. Inside the veil, humanity had transformed. The first century was the hardest. The old ways died slowly. Some people could not accept the new world. They fought against unity. They clung to old flags and old hatreds. But generation by generation, they faded away. Their children chose differently. By the year 3000, no one alive remembered the old nations. There was only the Directorate, and there was only one goal: escape. Director Yuki Tanaka was born in 3021. Her grandmother had seen the stars before the veil. She had told young Yuki stories about the night sky, about the endless points of light that had once covered the darkness. Yuki grew up dreaming of seeing them herself. She became a scientist, the best of her generation. By the time she was 40, she led the most important research project in human history. The veil is perfect, she told her team one cold morning on Luna. We cannot break it. We cannot go around it. Every test, every probe, every experiment has failed. Her team looked defeated. They had been working on this problem for generations. Their parents had failed. Their grandparents had failed. Why should they be any different? But Yuki smiled. We cannot go through the veil, she said. But what if we do not need to? What if there is another way? She showed them her discovery. For years, she had been studying something strange. A dimension beneath normal space. A layer of reality that no one had ever explored because no one knew it existed. She called it slip space. The veil blocked normal space. It blocked hyperspace, which the Concord used for travel. It blocked every dimension that Concord science had discovered. But they had never found slip space. They did not know it was there, and the veil did not touch it. Building the first slip space engine took 20 years. It was the most complex machine humanity had ever created. When it was finished, they installed it in a small ship called the Defiance. Captain James Okonkwo volunteered to pilot it. He knew the risks. If the engine failed, he would die. If the veil detected him, he would die. If slip space itself was hostile, he would die. He did not care. I will see the stars, he said before departure. Even if only for a moment, that is enough. The Defiance launched in 3089. Yuki watched from the control center, her heart pounding. The ship approached the veil, that gray barrier that had imprisoned humanity for so long, and then it disappeared. For 3 terrible minutes, there was no signal, no communication, nothing. Yuki gripped her console so hard, her fingers turned white. Then James Okonkwo's voice crackled through the speakers. He was laughing and crying at the same time. I see them, he said. I see the stars. They are beautiful. They are so beautiful. Humanity had found its escape, but they did not use it immediately. They were not fools. If they sent ships into Concord space, they would be detected. They would be destroyed. The Concord had thousands of warships and millions of soldiers. Humanity had a few hundred ships and a single solar system. They needed more. Director Chen Wei-lin took power in 3102. He was a patient man. His father had taught him an old saying, "The best revenge is living well." Chen believed in something slightly different. The best revenge is living secretly. He sent scout ships through slip space to map the galaxy. They moved carefully, always staying in the shadows. They discovered something wonderful. The Concord only cared about certain places, rich planets, bright stars, trade routes, and strategic positions. But between those places lay emptiness. Dark spaces where no one went. Brown dwarf stars too dim to be useful. Rogue planets drifting alone in the void. Asteroid fields in the gaps between spiral arms. The Concord had never claimed these places. They were worthless. To humanity, they were everything. The first shadow colony was built in 3115. It was nothing more than a hollowed-out asteroid orbiting a dying star. 50,000 people lived there, mining resources and building ships. By 3150, there were 10 colonies. By 3200, there were over 100. The umbral dominion grew in the darkness between stars. 147 systems, all connected by slip-space routes that the Concord could not see. Cities carved into asteroids, factories hidden in gas giants, shipyards orbiting brown dwarfs, and the people of the Dominion were different from their ancestors. 300 years of shared purpose had changed them. They were patient, they were focused, they were united in a way that no human society had ever been before. But they had not forgotten their anger. Admiral Kofi Asante was born on Earth but raised in the shadow colonies. He grew up hearing stories of the Banishment. He learned about Ambassador Vance. Standing alone before the Council of 12, he memorized the words of Velthos. You are not civilized. Those words burned in his heart like a cold fire. He joined the military at 16. By 40, he commanded the Shadow Fleet. 3,000 warships, each one designed for one purpose, to be invisible. Their hulls absorbed sensors. Their engines produced no heat signature. They could move through space like ghosts. Asante trained his crews for 30 years. They ran simulation after simulation. They studied Concord tactics. They learned every weakness in the alien defenses. And they waited. Meanwhile, another project was taking shape. The directorate called it the Unseen Hand. Human scientists had studied the Concord species carefully. They learned their biology. They understood their genetics. And they developed something terrifying. The ability to disguise humans as aliens. The process was painful. It required years of surgery and genetic modification. But when it was complete, A human could pass as Vethkai or Dromar or any other Concord species. Their disguise was perfect. Hundreds of volunteers underwent the transformation. They were sent into Concord space as spies. They took jobs as servants and workers. They infiltrated governments and militaries. They gathered information and sent it back through secret slipspace channels. By 3,300, the Unseen Hand had agents on every major Concord world. They knew the secrets of every species. They had maps of every defense. They understood the petty rivalries and ancient hatreds that divided the Concord. And they waited. The galaxy believed humanity was dead. A failed species, trapped behind the veil, slowly going extinct. Sometimes, Concord children would ask their parents about the humans. What happened to them? Why were they banished? They were savages, the parents would say. They could not control their violent nature. They were not worthy of the stars. The children would nod and forget about the strange little species from the small blue world. They did not know that human spies stood among them. They did not know that human ships drifted in the darkness between their stars. They did not know that humanity had been watching them, studying them, preparing for them, for centuries. The Concord had tried to bury humanity. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous than they could imagine. In the shadows, Admiral Asante reviewed his fleet status reports. 3,500 ships now, all armed, all trained, all ready. He looked at a holographic map of the galaxy. The Concord worlds glowed like jewels. The veil around Sol system pulsed with mocking gray light. Soon, he whispered to himself. Very soon. The quiet centuries were coming to an end. The Umbral Dominion was humanity's greatest secret. It was also their greatest achievement. By the year 3,300, the Dominion had grown beyond anything the early founders had imagined. What started as a few hidden colonies had become a true empire. 147 star systems, billions of people, thousands of ships, and the galaxy had no idea it existed. Director Maya Santos stood in the command center of Shadowhome, the capital of the Dominion. It was built inside a massive asteroid that orbited a brown dwarf star in the void between two spiral arms. No trade routes passed near it. No Concord sensors could detect it. It was invisible. She looked at the holographic map floating before her. Blue dots marked human colonies. Red dots marked conquered worlds. The blue dots filled the empty spaces between the red ones. They walk right past us, she said quietly. Every day, their ships pass within light years of our colonies. They never look. They never wonder what might be hiding in the darkness. Admiral Asante stood beside her. He was an old man now, his hair gray and his face lined with years of waiting. But his eyes were still sharp. Why would they look? He said. They believe the darkness is empty. They have believed it for 50,000 years. It never occurs to them that someone might choose to live there. Maya nodded. Arrogance. It is their greatest weakness. The Dominion had learned much about the Concord over the centuries. The Unseen Hand had sent back mountains of intelligence. Every secret, every scandal, every hidden conflict was now known to humanity. The Concord was not as united as it appeared. The 12 species had worked together for 50,000 years, but they did not trust each other. The Vethkai considered themselves the natural leaders and treated the others with barely hidden contempt. The Dromar were aggressive and hungry for expansion. The Manthari were secretive and kept to themselves. The Elosians resented being treated as a lesser species. Old conflicts simmered beneath the surface. Border disputes had been unresolved for millennia. Trade agreements were constantly broken. 3 species were actively spying on the others, and none of them knew that humanity was watching all of them. Agent 7 was one of the Unseen Hand's best operatives. She had been born human, but years of surgery and genetic modification had transformed her into a perfect copy of a Vethkai female. She had lived among them for 40 years. She had risen to become a senior aide in the High Speaker's own household. Today, she stood in a private chamber, transmitting her latest report through a tiny slipspace communicator hidden in her jewelry. The Vethkai are preparing for war, she whispered. They believe the Dromar are expanding into their territory. Both sides are building fleets. The conflict could begin within the decade. The message traveled through slipspace to a relay station hidden in the void. From there, it bounced to Shadowhome. Within hours, Director Santos was reading it. She smiled. The Concord is about to tear itself apart, and they still think we are dead. But humanity was not just watching. they were building. The Shadow Fleet had grown to 3,500 warships. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering. Their hulls were covered in a special material that absorbed sensor signals. Their engines used a new technology that produced almost no heat. They could fly through the heart of a Concord fleet and never be detected. Admiral Asante visited the main shipyard, hidden in the rings of a gas giant 300 light-years from the nearest Concord world. Massive docks held ships in various stages of construction. Workers moved like ants, welding and assembling. "How long until the fleet is complete?" he asked the shipyard commander. "Another 40 years for full strength," the commander replied. "We will have 5,000 ships by 3,340. Asante nodded. "And the special projects?" The commander led him to a restricted section of the shipyard. Here, a different kind of work was happening. "The infiltration pods are ready," the commander said. "Each one can carry 100 soldiers. They can pass through planetary defenses without being detected. We can land troops on any Concord world without warning." Asante examined the sleek, dark pods. They looked like nothing he had ever seen. "And the signal jammers?" "Complete. We can disable Concord communications across an entire sector. When we strike, they will not be able to call for help." The years of preparation were bearing fruit. Every system had been planned. Every detail had been considered. When the time came, humanity would strike with overwhelming precision. But first, they needed one more thing. The veil still surrounded Sol's system. Humanity had escaped it through slipspace, but the barrier remained. It was a symbol of their humiliation, a constant reminder of what the Concord had done. Dr. Amara Osei led the team studying the veil. She had spent her entire life trying to understand it. Now, finally, she had succeeded. "The veil is not indestructible," she told the Directorate Council. "It is maintained by a network of generators hidden in subspace. We have located all of them. With the right equipment, we can take control." Director Santos leaned forward. "Take control? Not destroy it?" Amara smiled. "Better. We can open and close it at will. The Concord built a cage for us. We will turn their cage into a door." The council was silent for a moment. Then Admiral Asante began to laugh. It was a hard, cold sound. "When the time comes," he said, "we will drop the veil. The Concord will see Sol's system again, and they will see what we have built while they forgot about us." The final preparations began. Human agents on Concord worlds received new orders. They were to position themselves at key locations, communication centers, military bases, government buildings. When the signal came, they would act. The Shadow Fleet moved into position. Thousands of invisible ships spread across the galaxy, waiting in the darkness near every major Concord system. They did not attack. They did not reveal themselves. They simply waited. On Shadowhome, Director Santos met with her senior advisors one last time. "The Vethkai and Dromar will go to war within the year," she said. "When they do, the entire Concord will be distracted. That is when we move." "What is our goal?" asked a young counselor. "Conquest? Destruction?" Santos shook her head. "Neither. We want recognition. We want a place at the table. We want to show them that we are not the savages they believed us to be." Admiral Asante spoke up. "But if they refuse to listen?" Santos looked at him with calm, steady eyes. "Then we show them exactly how dangerous those savages can be." The counselor looked troubled. "Is that not proving them right? That we are violent and aggressive?" Santos stood and walked to the window. Outside, the brown dwarf glowed with faint red light. Stars that the Concord could not see sparkled in the distance. "We are what they made us," she said quietly. "They caged us like animals. They left us to die in the dark. They called us savages and denied us the stars. Now we have built an empire they cannot see. We have infiltrated their worlds. We have surrounded them with invisible fleets." She turned back to face the council. "We will give them one chance to make peace. One chance to welcome us as equals. If they take it, we will be merciful. If they refuse..." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The year 3,347 approached. The Vethkai and Dromar fleets gathered for war. The galaxy was about to change forever, and in the darkness between stars, humanity prepared to step into the light. The war between the Vethkai and the Dromar began on a cold morning in the year 3,347. It started with an argument over a mining station in the Kellis Nebula. Within days, shots were fired. Within weeks, full battle fleets were engaged. The entire Concord was pulled into the conflict. Old alliances were called upon. Ancient promises were invoked. Species that had been at peace for millennia suddenly found themselves choosing sides. It was the largest war in 3,000 years. And it was exactly what humanity had been waiting for. Director Maya Santos received the news in her private chamber on Shadowhome. She read the intelligence reports carefully. The Vethkai had committed 80% of their fleet to the conflict. The Dromar had done the same. Other species were mobilizing. The Concord's attention was completely focused on the war. She touched a button on her desk. Admiral Asante's face appeared on the screen. "It is time," she said. Asante nodded slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with centuries of waiting. "The fleet is ready. All agents are in position. We await your order." Santos took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had prepared for. 500 years of humiliation, of hiding, of building in the shadows. It all came down to this. "Begin Operation Revelation," she said. Across the galaxy, the Shadow Fleet moved. The first strike hit 17. Conquered communication relays simultaneously. The relays were massive stations that allowed faster-than-light communication between star systems. Without them, messages would take months instead of minutes. Human ships appeared from nowhere. They fired precise shots that disabled the relays without destroying them. Then they vanished back into slipspace before anyone could respond. The Concord military was confused. How could 17 stations fail at exactly the same time? It had to be sabotage. But by whom? The Vethkai blamed the Dromar. The Dromar blamed the Vethkai. Neither was responsible. The second strike was bolder. 12 military starbases across Concord space suddenly lost power. Their reactors went offline. Their weapons went cold. Their shields dropped. Millions of soldiers were left floating helplessly in the dark. Human agents in each base had planted devices in the power systems. The devices activated simultaneously. By the time Concord engineers found them, the agents had already escaped through slipspace portals. But the third strike was the one that shattered the galaxy's peace of mind. 3 Vethkai dreadnoughts were patrolling near their homeworld. They were the pride of the fleet. Each one was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. They had never lost a battle. Without warning, all 3 ships vanished. The Vethkai High Command went into a panic. Their most powerful warships had simply disappeared. Sensors showed nothing. There was no attack, no explosion. One moment the ships were there. The next, they were gone. For 7 days, the galaxy searched for the missing dreadnoughts. Fear spread through the Concord. What weapon could make entire ships vanish? What enemy had this power? Then, on the 8th day, the ships reappeared. They materialized in orbit around the Vethkai homeworld. Billions of Vethkai looked up and saw their dreadnoughts hanging in the sky. But something was wrong. The ships were intact, the crews were alive and unharmed, but every weapon system had been removed. Every gun, every missile, every torpedo launcher. The most powerful warships in the Vethkai fleet had been completely disarmed, and they had not even known it was happening. The message was clear. Whoever had done this could have destroyed the ships. They could have killed the crews. They could have attacked the homeworld itself. They had chosen not to. 1 hour later, a signal broadcast across every Concord frequency. Every ship, every station, every planet, with a receiver heard the same message. It came in every Concord language simultaneously. A human face appeared on screens across the galaxy. Director Maya Santos looked calmly at the billions of beings watching her. She spoke slowly and clearly. "You caged us. You forgot us. You were wrong." She paused to let the words sink in. 500 years ago, you sealed our solar system behind a barrier. You told us we were not civilized. You told us to die quietly in our prison. We did not obey. We are the Umbral Dominion. We have been among you for centuries. Your secrets are ours. Your weaknesses are mapped. Your fleets are surrounded by ghosts you cannot see. We do not want war. We want what you denied us. A seat at the table. Recognition. Respect. She leaned forward. You have 1 solar cycle to respond. Contact us and we will talk. Ignore us, and we will demonstrate what else we can do. Choose wisely. We have waited 500 years. We can wait longer. Her eyes narrowed. Can you? The message ended. The galaxy fell silent. On the Vethkai homeworld, High Speaker Velthos sat in his chambers. He was ancient now, over 2,000 years old. He remembered the day humanity was banished. He had spoken the words of judgment himself. Now those words echoed in his mind. You are not civilized. You are not welcome. He had believed, truly believed, that humanity would die behind the veil. He had not thought about them in centuries, and all that time, they had been watching, building, preparing. The Council of 12 convened in emergency session. Fear filled the chamber. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded war. Others pleaded for negotiation. The Dromar wanted to attack immediately. The Manthari counseled patience. We do not even know where they are. The Vethkai military commander shouted. Our sensors cannot find their ships. Our intelligence has no information on their colonies. They are invisible. Then we hunt them down. The Dromar representative snarled. We search every dark corner of the galaxy until we find them. A Manthari spoke, its crystalline voice cutting through the noise. And while we search, what do? They have shown they can disable our bases. They can take our ships. They have agents among us that we cannot identify. How do we fight an enemy we cannot see? The chamber fell quiet. Velthos rose slowly from his throne. The weight of 2,000 years pressed down on him. He had made many decisions in his long life. This might be the most important. We created this, he said. His voice was tired. We made them into the very thing we feared. We told them they were savages, and they became our shadows. We told them they could not reach the stars, and they built an empire in the darkness. He looked around at the other species. Pride and fear mixed on their faces. Perhaps, he said quietly, we should listen to what they have to say. The Dromar slammed his fist on the table. You would surrender to these animals? Velthos met his gaze calmly. I would talk to them. There is a difference. But if you prefer, you may lead the fleet against an enemy you cannot find, cannot track, and cannot fight. The Dromar had no answer. A day passed. Then another. The council argued endlessly. Some species began secret communications with the Dominion. The Manthari sent a message offering friendship. The Elosians proposed a trade agreement. The Kelith Collective asked for an alliance. The Concord was fracturing. On Shadowhome, Director Santos reviewed the incoming messages. She allowed herself a small smile. They are afraid, she said to Admiral Asante. Good. Fear makes people think. Asante studied the tactical display. Red dots showed Concord fleets gathering. The Vethkai and Dromar are combining their forces. They are heading toward Sol System. They intend to break the veil themselves and destroy Earth. Santos nodded. She had expected this. Let them come, she said. It is time to show them what waits behind the veil. The combined fleet of the Vethkai and Dromar was the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. 40,000 warships gathered in the darkness of space, dreadnoughts the size of cities, carriers filled with fighters, destroyers and cruisers and frigates beyond counting, the might of two great species. United for the first time in history, their target was Sol System. Admiral Krathos of the Dromar stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was a massive creature, covered in thick green scales. His eyes burning with rage. The humans think they can threaten us, he growled. They think they can hide in the shadows and make demands. Today, we teach them why the Concord has ruled for 50,000 years. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Thousands of ships moving as one. Their destination, the Veil. But as they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol System, they found something unexpected. The Shadow Fleet was waiting for them. Human ships materialized from nothing. They appeared in perfect formation, surrounding the Concord Armada completely. For every Concord vessel, 2 human ships took position, 70,000 warships. More than the Concord had ever imagined humanity could build. Admiral Kofi Asante sat calmly on the bridge of the Silent Fury. His flagship was surrounded by the cream of the Shadow Fleet. Every crew was trained, every weapon was ready, but he did not give the order to fire. Instead, a message was broadcast to the Concord fleet. You came to destroy us, Asante said. His voice was quiet but carried the weight of 500 years. You gathered the greatest fleet in history to tear down the veil and end humanity forever. Look around you. Count our ships. Consider your position. On conquered bridges across the fleet. Officers did exactly that. They counted, they calculated, and they realized the terrible truth. They were completely surrounded. They were outgunned, and they had no idea where all these ships had come from. You believed us dead, Asante continued. You believed us broken. You believed that caging us would make us weak. You were wrong. We are stronger than you ever imagined. And now you face a choice. He paused. We could destroy you. Every ship, every crew. 40,000 vessels turned to dust. The Vethkai and Dromar would lose their fleets in a single day. Your homeworlds would be defenseless. Your species would be at our mercy. The silence stretched across the void. But we will not do this. We did not spend 500 years preparing for revenge. We prepared for something else. At that moment, the veil around Sol's system began to change. The gray barrier that had imprisoned humanity for centuries started to pulse with new light. Strange patterns rippled across its surface. And then, slowly, it began to open. The veil did not shatter. It did not collapse. It simply parted, like curtains being drawn back from a window. And the Concord fleet saw what lay behind it. Sol's system had been transformed. Massive orbital rings surrounded Earth, glittering with cities and factories. Jupiter was encircled by shipyards that stretched for millions of kilometers. Mars blazed with the lights of 100 billion people. Even the outer planets were industrialized, their moons converted into fortress worlds. But most impressive of all was the fleet. Behind the veil, waiting patiently, was another human armada, just as large as the Shadow Fleet, just as advanced, just as ready for war. Admiral Krathos felt his blood run cold. The humans had not only matched the Concord fleet, they had doubled it, and they had been hiding this strength for centuries. A new voice spoke over the communication channels. It belonged to a woman with gray hair and calm, steady eyes. Ambassador Ilara Vance VII stood on the bridge of the Humanity's Dream, the largest ship in the human fleet. She was the direct descendant of the woman who had been humiliated before the Council of 12, 500 years ago. 500 years ago, she said, my ancestors stood before your council. She pleaded for humanity to be given a chance. She was told that we were not civilized, that we were not worthy, that we should return to our world and wait for extinction. Her voice hardened. We did not wait. We did not die. We built. We prepared. We became something greater than we were before. Not because we wanted revenge, but because we refused to accept your judgment. She looked directly into the camera. You are surrounded. Your fleet cannot escape. Your homeworlds cannot be protected. By every measure of military power, you are defeated. She paused. And yet, we will not destroy you. Confusion rippled through the Concord fleet. This was not what they expected. Enemies did not spare those they had defeated. The Concord itself had never shown mercy to conquered species. We do not wish to rule you, Ilara continued. We do not wish to conquer your worlds or enslave your peoples. We want only what we have always wanted. A place among the stars. Recognition. Respect. Lower your weapons. Join us. Let us build something the galaxy has never seen. Not an empire of fear, but a commonwealth of equals. A partnership of all species, working together for the good of all. She spread her hands. Or do not. Continue this war. Watch your fleets burn. See your homeworlds fall. And know, for the rest of your history, that you had a chance for peace and chose violence. The decision is yours. The Concord fleet hung frozen in space. 40,000 ships, surrounded by nearly double that number. Their commanders calculated odds, weighed options, considered outcomes. Minutes passed like hours. On the Dromar flagship, Admiral Krathos stared at the tactical display. His warrior's heart demanded battle. His pride screamed for vengeance. But his mind, cold and clear, saw the truth. They could not win. If they fought, they would be destroyed. Their homeworlds would fall. Their species might survive, but it would be broken and scattered. Or they could accept the human offer. Keep their fleets, keep their worlds, join something new. Slowly, painfully, he reached for the communication controls. This is Admiral Krathos of the Dromar hegemony, he said. His voice was rough with anger, but also with something else. Respect. We accept your terms. We will lower our weapons. One by one, other Concord commanders followed. Weapons powered down. Shields were lowered. The largest fleet in galactic history surrendered, without firing a single shot. On the bridge of the humanity's dream, Elara Vance allowed herself a small smile. Beside her, Admiral Asante stood in silence, watching the displays. "We won," he said quietly. "After 500 years, we won." Elara nodded. "We did. But this is not the end. It is only the beginning." The Treaty of Sol was signed 3 months later. The Galactic Concord was dissolved. In its place rose the stellar Commonwealth, a union of 30 species based not on fear or force, but on cooperation. Humanity took no throne. They claimed no special power. They asked only for what they had always wanted, equality among the stars. But in the hidden places of the galaxy, in the shadow cities that still drifted between stars, the old infrastructure remained. The unseen hand was not disbanded. The shadow fleet still patrolled the void. The umbral dominion still existed, quiet and watchful, because humanity had learned something in their centuries of exile. Trust was earned, not given. Peace was maintained, not assumed. The galaxy was full of dangers, both known and unknown. On the anniversary of the treaty, Director Santos addressed the Directorate Council one last time before her retirement. "We have achieved what our ancestors dreamed of," she said. "We have won our place among the stars. We have proven that we are not savages. We have shown mercy to those who showed us none." She paused. "But we must never forget the lesson of our exile. We must never become complacent. We must never assume that peace will last forever. The Shadow Fleet remains ready. The unseen hand remains vigilant. Because the stars are beautiful, but they are also dangerous." She looked out at the council, at the faces of men and women who had dedicated their lives to humanity's survival. "We are no longer exiles. We are builders. We are partners. We are citizens of the galaxy. But we are also survivors. And survivors never forget." The council rose and bowed their heads. Outside, in the endless dark between stars, human ships continued their eternal patrol. Watching, waiting, protecting. The galaxy had tried to bury humanity in darkness. Instead, humanity had learned to thrive in it, and the stars would never forget.